Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. So I actually wasn't going to film a December reads video because I only read 4 books, and to be honest, if you guys watched my previous videos then you know that my goal for the year was to read 48 books and I read 64, so I was kind of a little, tapped out from reading, I guess you could say. So I only read 4 books, which I guess is still good for being in like a reading slump. But with the exception of the last book, because it was an audiobook, it took me basically the entire month to get through each of these books. And one of them I technically started in November. I just finished it last month. So that's where we are. So I only have 4 books to talk about with you guys today, but on the bright side, we are a week into January and I already am more into the books I'm reading right now than I was last month, so maybe we'll have a few more to talk about next month. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, I'll start off with my only physical book as always. Okay, there are a few books that I have on my TBR shelf, and I'm trying to read those before I buy new books. So the only new book I'm getting, like physical new books that I'm getting right now, are my book of the month subscriptions. Other than that, any other physical book, I'm trying to read my TBR before buying new ones, just to be a little smarter about spending money, I guess you could say. So this is my December pick, All the Dangerous Things. And first of all, I love how Book of the Month just like redesigns the hardcover. I almost just want to take the paper sleeves off and just leave the hardcovers because they're so pretty. But basically this is about Isabel Drake, who had her son kidnapped from inside of her house one night, and it's a year later and the case is still cold. And she goes to like one of those true crime con kind of things, and does like a panel there. She ends up meeting this guy who is a podcaster who ended up solving like a 20-year-old cold case about a girl who was murdered. And so Isabel kind of like teams up with him to try to solve her son's kidnapping, essentially, because there are no leads, no nothing. So that's what this is about. I kind of called it though. I was actually having a conversation with my husband about this book and I was giving him all my theories, and I was like, this is kind of my theory of what's happening, blah blah blah, and I ended up being correct. So it wasn't like I guess you could say it's like a whodunit, but it's more of like a predictable whodunit. Like the twists that happened in getting to the answer were nice to read, but I already knew the final answer, kind of. You know what I mean? So All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. She does have another book called A Flicker in the Dark, which is an international bestseller, so I'm going to try to get that one to read too, but All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. And then the next 2 books were on my Kindle. And the reason why I like to read things on my Kindle is because I was also telling Kareem this, that I need someone to come out with a way for like physical books to be able to glow in the dark or something when you're reading, because I like to read at night. But I'm always with my boys, putting them to sleep, and I obviously can't like being there with a bright reading light to illuminate my book. So I read from my Kindle instead. But sometimes I really get into my physical books and I would like to finish them, but I can't because I can't read in the dark. 1 second. Okay, so the first one that I read was An Inmate by Frida McFadden. And this one was actually kind of a quick read for me. I think it was only like 300 pages or something like that. It was something super short. Yeah, 302 pages. So it says there are three rules Brooke Sullivan must follow as a new nurse practitioner at a men's maximum security prison. 1. Treat all prisoners with respect. 2. Never reveal any personal information. 3. Never ever become too friendly with the inmates. But none of the staff at the prison knows Brooke has already broken the rules. Nobody knows about her intimate connection to Shane Nelson, one of the most penitentiary's most notorious and dangerous inmates. And they certainly don't know that Shane was Brooke's high school sweetheart, the star quarterback who is now spending the rest of his life in prison for a series of grisly murders, or that Brooke's testimony was what put him there. But Shane knows, and he will never forget. And I don't know how I felt about this book. It was kind of like a thriller, I guess you could say, and it was a little annoying because Brooke, I just wanted to smack her. Like, she was being so naive and so stupid. Like, so she works at as a nurse practitioner at the prison, right? Already knew Shane was incarcerated there. So one, that was a terrible idea to begin with. One of the prison guards warns Brooke not to trust Shane because he's super manipulative, and 2, the nurse practitioner before her wrote in his file that he was a super manipulative person and just to like be careful and to not trust him. And what does Brooke's dumbass do? She trusts him. So this is kind of going to include a spoiler, so if you don't want any spoilers, don't listen to this part. But basically, she has, I won't completely give it away, but she has an epiphany, I guess we could leave it at that, and ends up recanting her statement against Shane that put him away. So he ends up getting out, and it goes downhill from there, and I'll just leave it at that. And that's where I left it off at. And like the ending to the story, I did not expect because it had to do with Brooke's son. So I didn't expect the ending of the story, which was nice, but Brooke kind of irritated me because she was way too naive for my liking. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that one. Again, it was The Inmate by Frida McFadden. And the second book I read on my Kindle was An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. And if you've watched my book reviews before, you know that I've read a few of their books. But basically, it's about a girl named Jessica Ferris who agrees to be in a psychological study on ethics and morality by someone named Dr. Shields, and she gets paid for this. But the only thing is that not only will her behavior be monitored, it would be manipulated by said therapist. And it says, caught in a web of attraction, deceit, and jealousy, Jess quickly learns that some obsessions can be deadly. So it did have a twist that I didn't see coming. I again felt like Jessica was like a little naive and a little too trusting. Like, yeah, I get it. You agreed to be in this psychological study. But I don't know. I just feel like she should have seen more things coming than she did. And she was kind of like blinded by her. She thought the therapist was like this perfect woman. And she ended up being blinded by that and didn't see some things coming. But yeah, I feel like she should have seen more things coming than she did. So the last book I read was actually on Audible, and it was a quick read. I listened to it in like a day and a half, I guess you could say. And it's called After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It came out in 2014, so I think it's one of like her original books. I can't really remember. Again, around 350 pages. And it's about two main characters named Lauren and Ryan. And basically, they were high school sweethearts, and they came to the 6-year point in their marriage where they couldn't stand each other. They knew that they didn't want to get divorced, but they didn't know what to do. So, you know, instead of trying therapy like a normal couple, they decided to just separate for a year and have no contact with each other. At that year, reconvene with one another and decide, do we want to continue on the route of divorce, or do we want to stay together to end up working this out? So it's basically the story of what happens when love starts to fade, staying in love, committing to love and all that stuff, and trying to find a new road to happily ever after. And I feel like it's relatable because any couple who has been together for a long time, I feel like goes through a point in their relationship where they feel like the love isn't there anymore, and it really does bring to light that how much marriage is a choice, and you have to be willing to make certain sacrifices for it and be willing to put in effort to fix it, because if you don't put in effort, then you know it's not going to come out in the end. Spoiler alert, they do end up getting back together. Which is what I wanted, and if they didn't get back together, I was going to be very upset. But they did end up getting back together. It worked for them. So I mean, hey, it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it did work for the couple in this book. And that's it, guys. Those are the 4 books that I read in December. Like I said, hopefully for my January books, I have a few more than 4 to talk about. We'll see how it goes. But thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in my next one.